Hello, Trinidad and Tobago. My name is Mark Anthony Peter, and welcome to Breakthrough. As per usual, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Sean Michael Small, and as per usual, the person behind the controls of the audio is giving us a hard time. And I don't know. Sometimes I just don't know.
I mean, I'm not paid enough to be subjected to this level of abuse.
That is absolutely very true. But anyway.
It's kind of sad that it's true.
It is, but you know what? The show must go on.
Does it? I guess it does.
It does. The show must go on. People look forward to it. We've been getting some great feedback. Again, thank you for all of the love and support that we've been getting. A lot of people have been, really sending their love and their support and sending good wishes and everything to the show. And they're watching it and they're enjoying it. So thank you. Again, thank you to the person who came up to me in Price Mart. I still can't remember her name. I think it's Regina. Shout out to Regina. Thank you for watching the show.
I really hope that's her name now.
I really hope.
With that said, you can if you don't know where, ask your grandchildren or your nephews or your nieces or your children to help you if you need help. But maybe leave a like, a comment, or subscribe to our YouTube or Facebook. Follow our Facebook. But specifically on Breakthrough, you could leave a like or comment on the episodes that we publish on our social media to kind of show your support.
Yes, absolutely. And, share the videos. But, how are you, Sean? Okay.
Well, I'm no longer being tortured, so things are looking up in this immediate minute.
It is the first week of the new term.
Mm-hmm.
I am kind of looking forward to it.
Not ready for it.
I
Still not ready for it.
I did not have much of a vacation. It was very much work. But you know what? As artists, as creatives, this is the life that we chose. Well, this is the life that chose
No,
us.
my vacation is when the kids go on vacation, I could sleep in 10 minutes later. Okay. That's my vacation.
Okay.
Right?
Really?
That's all I get.
We need to update that. We need to upgrade that a little bit.
Daytime, daily television. There's no escape.
I hear
right?
you.
Not all of us could do once a week like you. Okay, we've gone on long enough, Mark.
Yes.
We've gone on long enough.
Anyway, nonetheless, it's another season for new experiences, new lessons, new adventures. Speaking of adventures, Sean, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how to arrange for an orchestra?
No. Why are we even asking me this question? That's like me asking Mark, do you know how to program a nuclear missile? Like,
no, I do not.
Exactly. I'm pretty sure music school never taught you about rocket science, right?
No.
Okay.
But music school is in itself rocket science.
What part of me looks like an orchestral arranger?
But anyway, so that's great. So that means you're going to learn a lot today. I'm going to learn a lot today.
You're going to learn a lot today. I'm going to nod my head up and down and pretend that I'm going to learn a lot today.
I see. So we're going to go to school today. We're going to take you all to school today with our next guest, cellist, principal cellist of National Philharmonic Orchestra of Trinidad and Tobago, and arranger, Wasia Ward. Good morning.
Hi, guys.
How are you?
I'm okay.
Very good, very good. We're having a good, again, the off-air conversations.
Yeah, let's leave them off here.
Yeah. But we've been having a grand old time, but I'm ready to have a grand old time this morning with the topic. So, our discussion for today, melodies to magic. So, you're an arranger for the National Philharmonic Orchestra, and you arrange your own pieces as well. And you take songs that we know and make them orchestral and big and grand. If you've never experienced this in person, I beg of you, go to an NPO concert anytime they're having. Follow their Facebook, follow their Instagram, all of those things. But you are actually going to take us through how you came up with an arrangement. Like, what is the arrangement? What is the song? What are some of the instruments involved? And take us through the process.
Okay, so this one is the introduction to DNA, and we start off with the introduction. So I kind of take a noticeable part of the song, the soca song, and use that as my theme for like the first 24 bars, I think, yeah. And what I do is I build upon it gradually.
Okay.
So we will see how I add instruments to, like make it fat,
Yes.
make the chords bigger, I suppose, to expand on the theme in a way, and then add in other themes to introduce the song in a way. Yeah.
All right, cool. So we actually have the first clip. Let's just run that. And this is just the string section that we have.
This is just the string section.
Right, so let's just take a look at the first 8 bars of the string section. All right, so that was a clip. So that was the strings there, and I recognize the main part you're hitting.
Yeah.
Da 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 da.
Yes.
Which instrument is doing that?
The violas.
Okay, that's interesting. That sounded so lovely.
So of course, there's more than one string instrument.
Yes, so we have violin 1, violin 2, viola, cello, and bass. And the other strings, they basically just establish the chord structure while the violas are doing the
Okay.
da 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 da.
So there's 2 sections of violin,
Yes,
basically.
yeah.
So one of the things I find interesting to find out, obviously you don't actually play all of the instruments. So, and we could maybe just stick to the strings now. They're the same type of instruments. Does that help with your understanding the mechanics? Because of course, when people started to use a keyboard to synthesize things, one of the things, of course, is how you play a keyboard is not how you play a guitar.
Yeah.
So you need to kind of know, well, my hand can only move so many ways
Exactly.
with this
Yeah.
instrument,
Yeah.
right? Is there a lot of differences in the various string instruments?
Yeah, it's really just range. Range is really the biggest difference between them all. So you just need to know what the ranges are, and you're okay. But we have this kind of, someone said to me once that when different people from the orchestra bring music for us to play. So
Okay.
you will know when a wind person writes for the orchestra.
Yeah.
You're going to know when a string person writes for the orchestra because of how they write for their section.
Yeah.
Right.
So I know how to write best for strings because I'm a string player.
I've had that experience myself when people who don't play piano compose
Right, piano. Oh, okay.
Especially if it's just a singer and they write for piano, and I'm like, how many fingers do you think I have? I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we started off with the string section.
Yes.
Let's throw to the next clip, and then you'll talk about what we saw there. Chills. So tell us about that section now.
Right, so now after the first 8 bars, that same chord structure happens for about 32 bars. So now it is to add layers and to add some variety, some different textures to keep the listener interested. To add some rhythms, like the flute was going ba da da, you know. I get it. Yeah, so that's what it is. So it's introducing new texture, new rhythm, and layering to make it to augment it just a little bit,
Okay.
to then get to another step.
And like for people to understand what texture, it could be a different harmony line that's maybe in the background, not necessarily foreground, but it's going to add an extra element to kind of change the overall sound. And then in that clip, what I found was interesting was because there were times when you could hear the soca beat, and then there were other times when those elements were not necessarily on the obvious soca beat that you would have heard from the song, right? But it was still giving you some sort of like quick
Rhythmic.
note change, some amount of rhythm from what is not percussion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So, as we were talking about just before we went to the clip, has anyone ever, when you bring an arrangement to the orchestra, has anyone ever looked at their part and been like, Wasia?
So then do you all modify it? Do they help you make
Well,
suggestions, or
Sometimes.
do they like,
They
you
just have to
know,
bite the
do
bullets.
they go into the time chamber, you know, to come back out, you know, all of a sudden like their fingers are just, you know, much more muscular.
Yeah.
when all-
No, it's not like that. I mean, we try as much to keep what the arranger wants or what the composer wants. The players try as much as they can to give what they want. If it the problem, like second instruments, because we have violin 1, violin 2, we have like a clarinet 1, clarinet 2, flute 1, flute 2. Sometimes the second instruments parts aren't as fun, I suppose, as
They're not as intense, maybe?
They're not as,
They're more like sustained
holding,
this
yeah,
note.
a lot of
sustaining
sustaining
notes.
and
Okay.
harmony
Yeah.
and
So then they'll be
It's like singers and like
So
basses
that's
and
where-
altos, you know,
it's
whole,
basically,
yeah.
yeah. So
But-
that's
but-
where the problem comes
But
in.
here's the real question now, because of course I'm sure there are many famous classical pieces that are difficult. Now, have you ever wondered, this piece, is it difficult because the composer intended to make it difficult, or was it because he didn't know how to play this instrument? That is the centerpiece of the arrangement.
I do think that is the case sometimes.
Okay.
Definitely. You don't understand how it goes because we really do get parts sometimes and we're like, we know you don't play this instrument.
Exactly.
You don't understand
You don't
the
understand.
mechanics it would take for us to do this.
And that's,
So, yeah.
and that's just because the point that you brought up, you know, people don't really grasp. People think, okay, music is not as scale as you think it is,
Yeah.
because sometimes it's not just a matter of playing what's in front of you. It's like, how can we like to use this word, how can I cheat this
Yeah.
to make it sound as authentic as, and you kind of have to adjust in the moment
Because
as
I think
well.
Vivaldi is a very difficult string piece, right? Of the violin accompanies maybe a piano and a cello, and the violin is very.
Yeah.
Ah,
So
yes.
I do wonder now, maybe he was a pianist.
Well, no,
because this is a lot easier than this.
I would have to say that with Vivaldi, I think he understood, like, so the chords and that kind of thing they will have to play. It's not in a wild position.
Right.
So, you know, once you have the technique and the skill level, you can do that.
Right.
Okay.
But this is like out of the ordinary type things I'm talking about where it's like, it's
Like
I
how
can't even,
do you?
Yeah, but it is a learning experience. So with our conductor, he might bring something and you can say, hey, so X, Y, and Z
Okay.
is happening, and he will be
Oh,
like,
that's good
okay,
that
I
he's open
I
to-
didn't
yeah.
understand that, you know.
Okay.
So now it's been 10 years of learning.
It's like I did grow up in Chernobyl. I don't have a third arm to get
Yeah.
the angles
Yeah.
that you need me to get.
Yeah, the winds and brass will tell him, we can't do that.
Yeah, it's just because, especially as a composer and arranger, the sound is what you're going for, really and truly.
Yes.
And then it just, and sometimes that can sometimes get in the way of the specific instrument that you're playing for. Even if you're writing for choral music.
Right. Because I don't know. I never was. I don't have enough experience in that kind of arrangements
Right.
to know, right? But when an instrumentalist does a choral piece, because sometimes, I know that they have been sung the past, and I'm looking at some of these arrangements, I'm like, why is that note there? I know it's a chord, but I mean, with the phrasing that you have us, that's not a note.
Well, I think that goes for all of the young arrangers out there. I guess some good advice is to know the instruments or the voices that
Yes,
you're playing
be
for,
familiar with it.
and try as best as possible. Put yourself in their shoes a little bit, right? There's a joke with music theory students. Like when you're doing music theory and you're writing the 4-part, you kind of have to follow certain rules as you
Right.
go along. And there's always that one part that kind of suffers because, like, oh, there's a parallel fifth here, there's an octave here,
Yep.
so you just kind of avoid that.
Because
And then
there's only so many notes in a
there's
chord.
only so
Exactly.
many notes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
But
like
anyway,
once you go past 3-part harmony and singing, it starts to get
it starts to
get boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
It's the same notes.
so we heard the strings, we heard the woodwinds. Let's hear this next clip. This is the strings and the woodwinds together. Let's see what that texture sounds like. Now, one of the things that I noticed, at that last part, you said the violas had the theme at the beginning, but then it switched to two instruments took it over, and it
Violin
like
and cello.
octave.
Yes.
Right, so the violins did it an octave
An
up,
octave higher, yeah.
and the cellos did it.
Cellos did it the same
The same
range
octave?
as the violas.
Okay,
Yeah.
so like it doesn't have to stay within
No,
that
so
same.
that again, it's to bring a newer,
Okay.
another sound, I suppose, another layer
Right.
to
Yeah,
the
just
piece.
by changing the instrument,
Just by changing
it's going to
instruments.
switch
Yeah.
things up a bit.
Yeah, yeah. And the
Just like
violin,
changing with the lead singer from one
Yeah.
part to the next.
yeah, yeah. The violin up there in that octave, it's louder.
Okay.
When you get higher,
Right.
it's easier to hear. So,
Right,
Okay.
and it'll also give it more.
Yeah.
Right.
So now it's doubling. Two instruments are playing that same thing. We get more of it.
Now, what was interesting to me was how, again, those background parts with the second set of instruments, the timing of it, the switch ups where you get some soca timing, but then you get, I guess, for lack of better, but a more classical,
Yes.
mellow timing that almost like pulls the whole arrangement back. It's like, come on,
Yeah.
come on.
So people think, they always say the slow, it's like taking soca music and making it slow. This is the same tempo that the song is in. You know?
Right.
But
Okay.
it just feels slow because it's not like that.
No, but I think it's
you know?
interesting that you're
Yeah.
able to kind of, because the mix-ups are not like an obvious, I guess anybody who understands rhythm, your brain kind of tends to want to
You
kind
wanna
of go
keep
with
it
that
there.
obvious
Yeah, yeah.
pace, and it's hard to break it for some people. So you're kind of like pulling us back with this complex kind of in a different pocket of
Yeah.
timing.
And I feel like
that-
it makes it feel large. It makes
Yes.
it feel like
Yes.
expansive.
Yes.
Yeah.
It adds depth to it.
Yeah.
To the point where like you emotionally you feel it almost like it's breathing, it's expanding.
Yeah.
It's growing.
Right? And then it might come back, it might breathe in, breathe out, but I just found those surges of that change was,
Now, I want to move on. This is one of my favorite sections.
Yeah. Me too.
And when they play, you know they're there.
Yes.
Right?
Definitely.
So we're
I
gonna
wonder if I know what instrument it is.
let's take a look at this next clip. This is the brass section.
Yeah.
Let's go to that clip. Oof.
And you're hearing the switch ups in the
Yes.
timing too.
Yes.
Some of, and I mean obviously you want it to sound cohesive. So some of the same types of sounds
Yeah.
conceptually
Yeah.
for one part you're writing this
Right.
to match, right? Not just with the timing but also what chords you're using, and how
Yeah.
you want it to sound,
Yeah.
the effect you're going for.
So the horns, especially, is one of my favorite sounds ever.
Yes.
It's French horns. Whenever
Yeah.
they come in, it's always clean. It's bright.
Yes.
So they come in as another layer of texture
Yes.
to bring this kind of like regalness. So when they come in, it's like, yes, all right,
Yes.
there we go. And then the trumpets come in with their hits.
Yeah.
And that's an identifiable part of the song, if you know the song well enough.
And then yes, and then that's also like we have a brass culture.
Yeah.
So then
yeah.
you're like,
Although, like, when you think about it, in modern music, bands, brass, French
No,
horn
they don't.
is not an instrument, except when you hear it in orchestra.
Yeah.
That's the one
Yeah.
that stands
Love.
out
Yeah.
prominently.
Love a
But if you have a
French
jazz band or a soca band, it is the trumpets,
Yes.
trombones,
Yes.
saxophones. not French horns.
Yeah.
And I'm left to wonder why. What are we kind of missing out on?
Well, I think it probably just has to do with the color, the and
It is, I think,
and
definitely
French
color.
horn. Like there are very few people who can play French horn really well. And that's one of those rare. That's the rare
Is it
instrument.
because not a lot of people play French horn, or because it's hard to play?
I think it's hard to play. I really don't know what the...
I mean, I'm asking two non-brass people.
No,
I guess this is not.
I don't know how much the instruments cost even. Like,
Yeah, I just know that it's not. I don't know what's the
I mean,
reason behind it.
Trumpet and sax do not look that easy, and trombone is,
Yeah.
I put the stick out longer. That's how I make my notes.
I think no. So I think what happens, and correct me if I may be incorrect in this, but the recorder is very similar to like the wood instrument of the clarinet, right? But the clarinet has similar fingering to the sax. So if you had experience with the recorder and the clarinet, then you can play the sax as well.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I think French horn is just that unique thing where it's like like there's no other. If there's the piano, there's the piano. But it's one of those things where it's like, this is how you play it, and this
I
is
mean,
the
I
only
guess,
thing.
but I will go on a limb and say trumpet doesn't translate and trombone doesn't translate to any instrument that I know.
I think some trombones might play tuba as well. I keep touching my... I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh yes, tuba. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Now,
poor tubas. No
but
respect.
speaking of the trombone, I didn't see them just now, and I think if we look at this next clip, let's look at this next clip with the brass and the trombones, and I think we'll understand why we kind of left them out now. So the trombones had the identifying.
Yes.
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
Until morning.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting, interesting. What I appreciate though, I saw the people would see like a lot of rest. There's even like a bar of silence when we just hear the brass. There's something about rests. They're so
space.
important, allowing the music to breathe.
Yeah.
Because everybody is doing something at the same time for the entire song. It just becomes
Or
Messy.
maybe you don't understand it in terms of music, but it's like when you do fancy plating in cooking competition shows and there's negative space and most of the food is all
It
to
is
one
negative,
side.
yes.
Like, and I guess it's also about you need, with regards to consuming something, sometimes people need time, I guess, to breathe. It's almost like a break in a TV show on intermission. Like, you need to put breaks in music so that it's not just this one thing that's just at this
Exactly.
level over and over and over and over. Because then that would get boring.
Yeah, so it has to be like I put intentional space so that you don't overpower the music and it doesn't become too full. But you also have important parts in between that you need to hear. And if they keep sustaining their notes, then
Yes.
we don't get to hear the other parts.
Well then, let's see if we can hear those other parts with the string, woodwinds, and brass together. Let's take a look at the next clip.
Dun, 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 dun. Like that part, that's when it just...
Yes.
That's the French
It-
ones, yeah.
yes.
Oh, there's a theme.
I wasn't
We love
sure,
the
but I'm like, yes, that, because of the notes, the type of notes you're playing, I was like, that's French horns, but the effect that it has, that's kind of what made me think it was. Like, I don't know why, but French horns tend to have that part of the song to give you that feeling.
That feeling, that exact feeling.
Yeah, you know, it's like it's almost like, and here we're on to go on an adventure, folks. You know, it's a musical adventure now. Like French horns is just the musical equivalent of adventure.
Like even in Beethoven's Fifth.
Yeah.
Right, ba 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 bum, ba ba ba. That solo line that goes ba 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 bum bum bum. That is French horn.
Yeah,
that's my favorite.
And then when he changes it, after the repeat of the whole first section, the ba 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 ba. Well, it changes. The French horns do it, and it's like
French horn players, we appreciate you and we love you.
I mean, yes, I understand. Not a lot of people are gonna understand when I say this, but it's something about the tone of the instrument and the range of the instrument, where it's like it has that positive feeling, right, of ascension, whereas other instruments will give you different emotions, right? If
like
you want something more dramatic,
power.
Yeah.
That's
yes, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
If you wanted something more, I don't know, frightening or sudden, maybe a trumpet, but French horn has that.
Well, speaking of that, that power and that drama, now I love a good percussion section.
Me too, yeah.
Percussion section that knows what they're doing and knows how to not get in the way of the music.
Yeah.
Thankfully, because NPO has...
And knows more than one beat. Which in this case does not apply because it's written for them, but...
Right, but the people who can apply themselves and uphold the quality.
Yeah.
So we're going to hear the entire first part, because she did two parts where at the last part she kind of switches up the chord structure a little bit. That's a different clip. We're going to hear everything from the beginning with percussion, and I feel like percussion just always adds like a dynamic.
It's the drama.
Yes, it always adds like a pulse. It's also kind of like the checkpoint of the audience.
Don't give away all of the sauce secrets.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let's listen to it. Yes. Good. See that timpani roll at the beginning?
Good.
I love a good timpani roll.
Yes, like
love that so much. So now the last clip that we're going to play, tell us about that, like why you decided to sort of switch it up a little bit.
Well, I feel like, especially with a song you might be taking with words and changing it to a format where it doesn't have words, you need to make it a bit more interesting. People can't identify the song, you know, but then when you keep doing the same thing over and over, it might get a bit boring. So this is a way to kind of explore different avenues, I suppose, different ways of presenting the song and showing, well, this is kind of what music can do.
I mean, my opinion, you have a song, your second verse sounds like your first verse, your third verse sounds like your first verse, your fourth verse sounds like, that to me is quite lazy, right? If the song is short enough and depending on the nature of the song, it might be okay, but I find that the willingness to put variety in, I am disappointed by some songs that you hear on the radio and some arrangements you hear on the radio. But of course, I could see where you don't have a vocalist to have lyrics to then add to it, because you know we kind of underestimate what the lyrical cues help us with the emotions and following the song. So you need to.
It's also like you know, what do I want out of music? What do I want the audience experience in this particular moment, you know? It's kind of like it kind of builds up in a way to then release when the chorus comes back in.
You have to take people on a journey.
It's a bit of an anticipation. It's like, okay, we come back to this part, but why does it feel like this?
So one of the things I always ask is, artists, I think, need to have something to say. Even if it's to entertain, you're trying to say something that's entertaining. And it's not about having something verbally to say. In this case, you have to say it with the instruments.
And the chord structure.
Okay.
Progression.
So then let's see what Wasia had to say with this last section. Take a look. It's a short section, but let's take a look. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Makes sense.
Actually, it does remind me of when I hear orchestral arrangements of pieces that were not originally orchestral arrangements. That variation does come into play. That type of variation, like when you bring it up to kind of finish off a section that would be monotonous otherwise. Because, you know, the original song, you have a guy singing and he might even be ad-libbing his vocals, right? And putting things in and out. So the orchestra has to kind of match that energy and not just try to match the energy. Because it's hard, right? To try to build on energy alone, but doing the same thing. It doesn't necessarily work.
Especially if you start off so big already. It's like, where do we go from here? We change the structure.
Is that an issue with orchestra? Like, it's,
well,
because
for me, in writing.
Once a lot of people start playing, you're just automatically big.
So then you kind of have to say, well, this section might need to be a little lower in volume, you know. So this is what rehearsals are about.
Or maybe tell, unfortunately, violin twos, you all kind of just do this low note here underneath for about 8.
And I think that's the magic in live performance and live people actually playing the instrument, not AI, but live people playing the instruments. Like, you have to listen to be able to adjust, because every section is going to have their moment to shine, quote unquote, and the audience is going to hear certain things at certain points. But if you stay at the same volume, like, you have the dynamic markers in the thing, but sometimes those dynamic markers are very subjective.
Yes, exactly.
And even though the moderately soft might have to be softer than you think, right? Because then the conductor will say, can you hear this section? They're having their turn. And then it's like, if you don't hear them, well, then you're probably too loud.
That's exactly, word for word.
I think, too, it might seem somewhat obvious, as Mark is saying it, but I have been disappointed at live performances that basically everything is flat. Everything is one level, whether it's tempo, tone, volume, no variation. So like some of the old-time calypsos, you know, great, they're the classics, they're the foundation of culture in the country, but some sort of variation and switch up. And the worst culprit of this, I'm not going to say who it is or even infer where they were singing and whatnot, but there was a duet that took every song they sang in the same key, in the same tempo, with the same type of background track, and it all sounded the same. Was it reggae? Was it R&B? I don't know. It sounded like them. They had a very unique sound that was this. Right. Now, if their sound was someone's heart, cardiac health, great. Stable like a rock. That's a foundation to put a building on. But if I want music, I want drama, I need waves.
Yes. Okay, and that's what, so you, just to recap the process, so you start with the strings, you start with the theme, right? And then you layer your woodwinds, and then you switch up. Somebody might have the theme, somebody might have the melody, and everybody's just juggling certain things. Some people are sustaining notes.
If it was a brass player, they might start with the brass first, or...
No, because I have arrangements where the brass starts. This is just specific.
This
is what I felt like doing this time around.
Okay. Yeah. And you don't always measure those things. It's just, the idea is this.
It happens in the head first, and then I'm like, okay, let's get it onto paper. Well,
nice.
My laptop.
Well, yes, your laptop, not pen to paper.
No.
Just yet. But I hope that all of the...
I'm sure you're happy that you don't have to take a feather pen
Definitely.
with ink.
The mistakes. Oh my God.
Now, granted, all of those great composers, like, people are hungry for like the original text.
Now, here's the thing. When typewriters were invented, were they the equivalent of orchestra, like music typewriters? Because I can imagine one mistake and all of a sudden you're like, I can't go through this all over again.
I think there's a strip of the staff, but you still have to write it in. I think that's what happened.
Okay.
But we've come a long way.
Yeah.
And we've come a long way with technology that the audience was able to see this, right? It's such a treat that we had you on. Thank you so much for joining. I hope all of the young arrangers, young composers out there take this and run with it. Sometimes one of the things that
even performers, y'all could learn something.
Exactly.
Y'all could learn something.
And what happens sometimes people don't always know how to start.
Please learn some things, by the way. don't do this. Don't do this. You know? Do this.
Yes. So we thank Wasia for coming. It was such a pleasure to have you. Before we head to break, I just want to let the people know that next week, Monday, is our season finale of Breakthrough. Season 1 has been amazing. We're coming to a close, coming to a wrap. But not a complete wrap.
No.
But I'll give you more information on that at the season finale. All right? Thanks again to Wasia Ward, Principal Cellist of National Philharmonic Orchestra of Trinidad and Tobago. Mark Anthony Peter, Sean Michael Small, WESN Content Capital. We'll be right back.